everybody. Hi, welcome everyone to this amazing event. We have so many great authors here with us. We do have some technical difficulties, and Cameron has a little bit of trouble coming in, but I will keep a hard eye on the attendees, and I'll bring him in whenever he is able to connect. Okay. So we have such a great panel here today. My name's Kai, by the way. I'm a social media member of Mysterious Galaxy, and we're celebrating the release of Mapmakers and the Lost Magic by Cameron Chittock and Amanda Castillo, Doodleville by Chad Sell, A Total Waste of Space-Time by Jeffrey Brown, and Steve L. McEvil by Lucas Turnbloom. Super awesome. So just a little bit of a bio about each author. Cameron Chittock and Amanda Castillo is up first. Previously, Cameron has edited comics, including titles such as the Eisner Award nominated graphic novel New World and Jim Henson's The Power of the Dark Crystal. And Amanda has since contributed to the publishers such as Boom Studios, Lionforge, and now Random House Graphic. The Mapmakers and a Lost Magic is their debut graphic novel. Super awesome and super fun. Chad Sell, he's not new to the scene as he has collaborated with folks before for the graphic novel The Cardboard Kingdom, and Doodleville is his first full-length solo project. Jeffrey Brown is the author-illustrator of the New York Times best-selling Star Wars Jedi Academy series and the Darth Vader series, and he is also the author of the Lucy and Andy Neanderthal graphic novels for middle graders and the picture book My Teacher's a Robot. Lucas Turnbloom is also the illustrator of Dream Jumper series, and he wrote a really cool thing. It's How to Cat that is now have it now has over 196K followers. Super awesome. That's really great. Imagine that. Yeah. So some pre-event reminders is that we have the books signed and bookplate. We have the books and signed book plates available through the Mysterious Galaxy website. And thank you to all of you authors for doing that. You can find the link for that in the shiny green box below that reads Buy Panel Books and Signed Book Plates here. Your purchase through Mysterious Galaxy helps us as an indie bookstore to keep doing wonderful events such as this. And the authors will be doing a Q&A around a 30-minute mark, so be sure to submit all your questions to the Ask a Question tab below. And I know you're not here to watch me talk, so I'm going to disappear in just a moment. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Cameron Chittock, Amanda Castillo, Chad Sell, Jeffrey Brown, and Lucas Turnbloom. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you, Kai. And thank you, Mysterious Galaxy, for that wonderful introduction and for setting up this panel. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mysterious Galaxy's middle grade graphic novel panel. Like Kai said, I am the moderator, Lucas Turnbloom. Some of you may know me as the creator of the webcomic How to Cat, or as the co-author and illustrator of the Dream Jumper graphic novel series through Scholastic. But I'm here today as the author and illustrator of the new graphic novel series, Steve L. McEvil. I would show you a book if I had it, but they haven't come in yet. They're still sitting on a barge somewhere, but it is out May 24th through Crown Random House, and it's available right now for pre-order. Thank you all for allowing me that shameless plug. My editor will be very happy that I did that. Today, I am joined by, well, I was going to be joined by 4 authors and illustrators, but we have a little technical difficulties, but I'm sure Cameron will stop by here. And when I say amazing, I do mean amazing. I've read each of your books. I'm blown away by the talent that brought these stories to life, truly. But before we get into the questions, I'd like to give you all the chance to throw your elevator pitch to the viewers of the current books that you're working on. It doesn't have to be, very long or anything, but I figured I'd give you that opportunity to do that. I was going to start with Cameron and Amanda, because your book is right on the top of my pile. But Amanda, if you'd like to go last, if Cameron may pop in, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll go with Chad then.
Oh gosh, Doodleville. Well, so my books are largely kind of celebrations of kids and creativity. So I have 2 series with Random House, which are The Cardboard Kingdom and Doodleville. Doodleville is all about kind of the magic of creativity, of taking the idea of a world just like ours, except that when you draw a character and bring them to life, you're really bringing them to life, and that they'll scamper along from your sketchbook to your wall to the ceiling. And so it's kind of an exploration of how magical and amazing creativity can be, but also how your own inner demons and insecurities can kind of threaten to corrupt all of that and what you used to love about drawing. So it's kind of a big, heavy fantasy, urban, magical adventure.
Wonderful. Okay, Jeffrey, do you want to go next?
Yeah. So my latest series is Space Time, and it's the story of these two kids, Jide and Petra, traveling through the galaxy along with some other kids who are all aliens, and very minimal adult supervision. So hijinks abound.
And Toby's fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, Toby is the main alien. Instead of trying to flip open, this is the original character design for Toby from when the story I wrote when I was a kid. So
that's so cool.
There's Toby.
Awesome. Okay, Amanda.
Yeah.
You're up.
Okay, so Mapmakers and the Lost Magic is a story about, it's the start of a series following this girl named Alidade Rose, and she lives in this small town, and she's always wanted to leave, and the town is being monitored by this group of authoritative figures called the Nightcoats, and she's always getting into shenanigans, always trying to like see what's out there and like explore the world. And then one day she stumbles upon a magical map and meets this kind of like magical bird who is like tied to the land, named Blue, and he's a blue heron. And so she kind of learns how to make these magic maps that help save her town.
That's wonderful. And I really, really loved the book. It was fantastic. Just real quick, mine, Steve L. McEvil, about a middle school supervillain who tries to take over the school, but he is having some issues, and he tries to live up to the legacy of his grandfather, who is the world's most famous supervillain. And again, that'll be out May 24th, pre-orders now. Thank you, everyone, for their pitches. I just want to take a quick moment to congratulate everyone on a job well done with these books. They're absolutely beautiful. They're very well written, wonderfully illustrated. Congratulations on that. Most readers of graphic novels, it's been my experience, don't really know how much time and energy go into creating books like these. It can take up to a year or more from inception to execution to publication. But also the creative process in bringing these books to life is completely different for each creator. There is no one size fits all when it comes to making graphic novels, which brings me to my first question, the creative process. Once again, I was going to go with Amanda and Cameron. But Amanda, if you want to wait, I mean, I can come back to it.
Yeah, we can just keep the same order if that's fine.
Okay, very good. All right. So my very first graphic novel series was a collaborative effort between my co-author and myself. He lives in Los Angeles. I live in San Diego. We wanted to have a story with deep lore and history and mystery, and it took us years to put that together. And when I first read Mapmakers and Lost Magic, I saw something very similar, a series with deep lore and mystery waiting to be explored in this book and beyond. When the two of you begin a series like Mapmakers and the Lost Magic, especially in the collaborative process, is this the entire series planned out between the two of you? Does Cameron share the ideas? Does he just dive in and start writing? How does that creative process work between the two of you?
So for the first book, I was actually brought on board when the script was almost done. So like the first building of like that book, like the initial like skeleton of the book and the script of all of that was already kind of in the works. But then when I was brought on board, there was still a lot to be done in terms of visuals. So then it was just a lot of communication between the two of us, back and forth, him being like, this is what I was thinking very loosely of what things would look like, or like the just the aesthetic of their world and like what it's inspired by. And then so I would go and I would do my own research into those various like time periods and like fashion periods and all of that stuff. pick and pull what I thought looked really cool and that I thought would suit everyone really well. And then I would come back with initial sketches and I would share with him. And then we would kind of just do a lot of back and forth of what we thought was working, what we thought fit the characters and fit the world and like the story we were trying to tell. So it very much was like a very like an ongoing conversation that kind of built the whole world that exists within the book. So yeah, so none of it ever was like isolated. Everything that we've talked about along the way in the process has always been like some form of conversation between the two of us.
Oh, that's very, very cool. Jeffrey, like you, I'm a lover of sci-fi, child of the 80s, Star Wars, and Star Trek. So when I read Once Upon a Space Time and A Total Waste of Space Time, they were like right up my alley. But not just for the sci-fi and the humor, which again, like I mentioned earlier, Toby is hilarious. I absolutely adored Toby. But you sprinkle in like astronomy facts, science facts throughout the book. And I was, I don't want to give too much away, but the black hole info in book 2, I was floored by that. I read that a few times because I was like, this is fascinating. And I absolutely love that. So when writing books like Once Upon a Space Time and A Total Waste of Space Time, do you spend a lot of time researching the factual stuff in addition to crafting the humor part of the story? I mean, like, it seems like it's two separate things. Or do you just dive in and just start writing and then piece everything together after the fact? I mean, how does the creative process work for you?
Well, so the Lucy and Andy Neanderthal series was also heavily researched, and I wanted to have a lot of super accurate scientific information. So that one I actually spent a year before I even started writing the story, like just research, and then while I was writing was like constantly researching. But like it's very taxing to keep that up for book after book. And with Space Time, it's like I've always been interested in the science side of science fiction, and I wanted to have that in there, but I wanted to I also wanted the freedom to like just mess with it. So it's a lot looser in the Space Time series, like the factual information. But yeah, so it was really just more about the story, and then finding places to fit things in, having them, encounter a black hole, and like having the kids try to like discuss how black holes work, which is, dealing with all kinds of physics that's complicated to understand for adults, let alone kids. So it's like a little challenge sometimes, but then sometimes there's things in there like ideas that are kind of based on actual scientific theory or practice. So the idea that one of the ways you can accelerate a spaceship out of space is to, approach a planet, get pulled in by the gravity, and then use that as like a boost, like where you just kind of go around it. But I kind of fiddle with it where they go around it again and again and again. And
yes,
it wouldn't really work that way, but yeah. So with Space Time, it was more, I wanted to like leave myself more room to have fun with it and not be so rigorous in the science.
Well, it was very, very well done. I very much enjoyed it. Chad, I love the concept of the Doodleville series because you've literally taken the phrase bringing art to life literally. I mean, it's fantastic. And when I mean series, I meant that because the sequel to Doodleville Art Attacks, will be out this November 2022. And I believe it's available for pre-order. Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And full disclosure, I got the advanced reader copy weeks ago, and I read it. It's fantastic. I absolutely love this series.
Thanks so much.
It's just wonderful. So congratulations. It looks fantastic, and it looks great on the iPad, by the way. So
good. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you've seen it yet on the ARC copy, but it looks great. As a kid, I spent a lot of time doodling like Drew. I mean, I moved from place to place, and art was kind of all I had for my childhood. So like many artistic kids, my doodles were very much alive to me. So like I said, your book really speaks to me in that way. Let's talk about that. Where did this story come from? What made you want to tell this story?
Well, I mean, I was just like you as a young artist, like drawing characters and, you know, imagining all kinds of stories for them. And what I found so interesting as I started growing up as an artist is certain characters would just kind of stick with you, and certain characters would kind of evolve and grow with you as you kept drawing them, and you went through different phases of your life. You got different interests. Like, you know, the character I use as an example is this character, Panja, who's just one of the little doodles, a little panda in Doodleville. And, you know, I when I first started drawing him in like middle school, he was this like, you know, badass ninja panda guy. And then Kung Fu Panda came out, and I was like, oh, I can't do that anymore. and so I just made him cute and little and not badass. And I really liked him that way. And he shows up in Doodleville. So I was just really excited about the idea of taking all these characters that live in your head, and what if they were your imaginary friends or your real friends on the page? And in a lot of ways, that's fantastic. But then it's also weird and surprising, and sometimes gets you into trouble when it doesn't do what you want it to do. Your art, you know, when it surprises you and is mischievous. And so in Doodleville, Drew, the main character, is not the best artist, but her characters and creations are the most mischievous and get her into the most trouble.
Absolutely. And in my newest book, Steve L. McEvil, I incorporated a childhood doodle that I've had since I was in the 2nd grade. And so I love that when they gave me Doodleville to read for this panel, that I was like, oh, look, so there's another, hey, I'm not the only one who does that. So I thought that was pretty cool. One follow-up with that, the Art Institute of Chicago plays an important role in Doodleville, and more importantly, the sequel, which I won't go into too much detail because I really don't want to give spoilers away. But when you came up with the concept of Doodleville, did you always know that you wanted to incorporate the Art Institute?
No, I've lived in Chicago for a number of years, like since 2013, and I love museums in general. And when I got the idea to set Doodleville in Chicago, I take long walks around my neighborhood. I just love the idea of setting it in my neighborhood and thinking, oh, what if, you know, how would Drew walk home from school? Like, where's her store located, or her coffee shop, her family's restaurant? And I think setting it in the Art Institute allowed me to, you know, take all these kids' art and then compare it to these giant, you know, masterpieces and giant paintings, and kind of play up that comedic juxtaposition of like a little doodle superhero trying to punch a giant painted clown, you know, which happens a lot in book 2 of Doodleville. So I just like that idea of, you know, high art and low art, kids art and the master's art, and seeing what would happen when you mix all of that up.
Very cool. Amanda, I love your art style in MAPMAKERS and the Lost Magic. There's definitely, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong, but there's definitely a manga feel there, like an influence, which I very much appreciate. I love it. And it's a style that really resonates with children these days, I've noticed. And let's talk about that. What were your influences as a child, and how do you work? Do you work traditionally or digitally, or is it a hybrid?
Yeah. So I can start with influences. I read basically all manga when I was a kid. Like that was what was around me, and that was like what everyone in my classes at school had. And so like that was pretty much like my entry point to comics, aside from like newspaper comics and all of that stuff, strip comics. But like manga was my biggest influence. So I read like a lot of Case Closed Detective Conan. I read Yotsuba. I read the manga version of Kingdom Hearts. Like it was pretty much whatever was on the shelves, I wanted to read it, and like that really stuck with me. And just like not even just the way that like stylistically I would draw people, but then also like the kinds of themes that I would want to see in like works that I would later on read and make. and just like expressions and acting and action and all of that stuff. So I'm like Yotsuba, Case Closed, and the Kingdom Hearts ones were like my very first. And then for work, so final product is all digital. But I get everything down on paper first as a thumbnail, just because it's easier for me to like when it's tangible to begin with, it's easier for me to like really work out how things are going to be, and like getting a sense of that scale. And then so I just like bring everything onto the computer and then I scale it up. And then I just do everything else on the computer. But I always make sure that like, because growing up, I didn't really do that much digital art. So I think it's really cool that now there's a lot of tools and brushes and stuff in digital art that allows you to recreate the feeling of like traditional art. So I always try to make sure that there's like some sort of that like very rough and like I guess texture, like tangible texture that makes it feel like it's like you're a drawing on paper. Because that's one of the things that I've always loved. Like I've always loved like pencil texture or like pen texture. So that's something that I've always wanted to like keep in my artwork, even if it's through a digital medium. Yeah.
Very cool. Jeffrey, I love black and white comics, from newspaper comics like Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, Big Nate, to indie comics in the 90s like Jeff Smith's Bone. My personal favorite medium to work in is graphite pen and ink. There's just something very pure about it, in my opinion, which is one of the many reasons why your books, they speak to me. I absolutely love the black and white. And full disclosure, I'm a huge fan of yours. So if I'm just like losing train of thought, that's why. So anyway, what was the impetus? And forgive me if you've answered this question before. I looked, I didn't see any. But what was the impetus for going black and white with the books Once Upon a Space Time and A Total Waste of Space Time, and including the Lucy and I'm sorry, I dropped it. Where was it? Lucy and Andy Neanderthal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the couple reasons. One is just like time wise, for like, because I still work completely analog. The only time I use digital is like scanning the drawings in, and I might do some corrections to text here and there, or small corrections, but like the finished art is all pretty much exactly what's on the page. And so coloring like the Darth Vader books, which are like 64 pages, and some of them don't have backgrounds, so like the time to color those is reasonable. But to do like each volume of Space Time is 250 pages, so time wise it just would be like unfeasible for me to do. And I like these and the Neanderthal books are stories that I kind of I want to tell fast, so I kind of like the speed that I can work in black and white with. And I mean, yeah, so I guess I don't know if there is another reason beyond that. Like I just like working in black and white, and I like being able to like get the complete a book like that. And when I'm working in color, it's just a different feeling. It becomes like the drawing, I guess, is a bigger part than the story is, or well, it's not bigger than the story, but the drawing, like in those, and like the Vader books, plays a bigger role than the drawings in like the Space Time books, maybe, like where like the story runs along faster, because it's in black and white for me. I don't know if everyone has that experience, because sometimes kids are like when are you going to do a book in color? So
no, I love it. It reminds me of like the old Mad magazines. I mean, every panel there's something going on. It's busy. It's very Sergio Aragonés in that way, where there's always something kind of going on. Mort Drucker, I absolutely love it. So I think it looks fantastic. Chad, one of the things that struck me about your art from both of the Doodleville books, there's a lot of movement in each panel, each character, each scene, very fluid, nothing static. I mean, everything flows, and it really just helps the eye just kind of pour across the page. And the backgrounds, especially in both books, but in Art Attacks, the background's very painterly. The artwork, I mean, it's very three-dimensional. And what it reminded me of when I was discussing this with my kids yesterday, it felt like, this is going to sound weird, but it like the old Looney Tunes cartoons where you have Roadrunner and the Coyote, and then the backgrounds, everything's detailed and paint. It's beautiful, hyper detailed. I absolutely love that. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what made you decide to treat the backgrounds in this manner. It's very much, it makes the characters and the doodles pop forward. Was that the intention? Let's talk about that, and after that, let's talk about your influences.
I mean, it's so funny to hear you comment on my backgrounds, because I hate backgrounds, and I'll look for any way to cheat and not have backgrounds when I can. I told myself, doing the sequel to Doodleville, I told myself, I'm going to make myself draw the front of the Art Institute of Chicago once at the start of the book, and then not ever again throughout the rest of the book. That was the only way I could get through it.
It looks just like it, though. I mean, I saw it and I'm like, oh my God, that's it.
Thanks. I mean, I think just using some texture and some tricks of perspective can really give a lot of depth, even when there's not a lot of detail in space. And, in book 2 of Doodleville, Art Attacks, the kids spend a lot more time in the Art Institute interacting with these giant paintings that come to life. And I tried to make those look really painterly and three-dimensional, because, I realized in approaching that book, like, these paintings are characters in the book. And so I need to draw many times these like masterpieces that someone spent a year painting once. And that was quite a challenge. So I tried to develop a lot of texture, painterly tools that would give that feeling of being painted, but without actually having to add all that much detail. And hopefully it looks really cool. Definitely the most trippy things I've ever drawn in Art Attacks, that somehow my editor let me get away with. So I'm
there was some trippy stuff in the second book, and I was like, wow, the kids are going to be like, oh, this is interesting. We are quickly approaching the 30-minute mark. We're 26 minutes. So I'm just going to give one more question out there for everybody to answer, and just however you see it. And I get this question a lot, so I figured that this would be a good one to kind of close it before we go to the viewers' questions. And we'll start. Let's see how we'll pick. Okay, we'll go with Chad. If you could give a piece of advice to a kid who wanted to draw or write comics, what would it be?
I would encourage them not to give up. I think so often we compare our little sketches with like the amazing, our favorite comic book ever. And when you compare them, they're not quite the same. One's worse, and I think it's easy to lose a lot of your confidence and give up. But the only way to get better is to keep drawing.
Absolutely. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And along with that, I would say read everything you can, and don't just read like the things that you like. Try reading things that you aren't actually that interested in. Sometimes you'll find that like something that looks like something you wouldn't like ends up being something that can be hugely influential. But just reading a ton of comics, you'll learn a lot about writing comics and how to draw them and how to write them. So that would be my other piece of advice, is to read everything you can.
Fantastic. Amanda.
I think mine would be just like, when it comes to like the writing and the drawing portion, just do something that you love. I feel like that when you like, when you try to write something that's not really like, or write or draw something that isn't like a subject matter that's the most interesting to you, you can kind of get hung up on it. But I think if you just really put the feeling that you have for something into it, then you can get really surprising results. Just like there's a like passion and love for whatever you're writing about or drawing about can really take you a long way.
Very cool. Yeah, I would reiterate the read everything and anything you can. You can only write about what you know, and the more you know, the more you can create. And I would also like to, I think somebody made the point, it's very important not to compare yourself to somebody else. I mean, I have to remind myself every day to do that. And it's so important that your work is your own. Your work is not your neighbor's. Your work is not you're the best-selling author this week. But work hard at it and don't compare. Just keep pushing forward. All right. I think that does it for our questions, and we are supposed to go to the audience questions here. Am I right, Kai? Am I right on that? Okay. Let's see here.
Yes, you're all good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we just covered that one actually. So we'll go with this one right here. What message do you hope to get across to the children and or parents who are reading your book? We'll start with Jeffrey.
Yeah, so like space-time, it's interesting you mentioned like the idea of not comparing yourself, and part of the idea about space-time is these characters are not like the obvious choices of like the two humans to represent all of Earth on this intergalactic space mission, but that's okay. Like they still do awesome, great things, and so I think one of the things I wanted to get across in the series was like when you're a kid and like you put this pressure on yourself, like that if you're not the best, it's not good enough, but it's about being like the best you, and trying to get better. And it's okay if you fail and make mistakes sometimes.
Okay. Amanda?
Well, I'm not the writer, but my takeaway when I first read Mapmakers was just this idea that like there's always going to be an importance and a strength in community, and that there's so much that can be done as like within your community and working together, and then also just the idea that like as people we kind of exist not above the world but like within it, and there's an importance of acknowledging everything that happens around you, even if it's not like a person, and that everything sort of has like a place and there's like a balance in the world, and just that it's just there's so much out there that we don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Chad?
I think my fellow panelists have really said what I wanted to say really beautifully. I try to have a lot of compassion in my books, showing characters understanding each other, appreciating each other, cooperating with each other. And like Jeff said, having compassion for yourself, not, acknowledging your mistakes, but not beating yourself up over them, and trying to learn from them and grow from them.
Okay, fantastic. Let's see. Out of all the characters in your books, which one is your favorite to draw? I'm going to say, what are your top 3 favorite to draw? We'll start with you, Amanda.
The 3 main characters.
That was kind of unfair for me to say that. Sorry.
Alidade, Blue, and Lewis. But I think personally Lewis, because he's Alidade's best friend, and he's like this little homebody guy, but he's just made up of a bunch of circles, and I think he's really fun and easy to draw.
Chad?
So some of my favorite characters to draw in Doodleville Drew's friends in art club each have their own drawn characters, and they are all from different genres. So like the superhero doodle is named Captain Cockatoo, who is super fun to draw. There's the magical butterfly boyfriends. There's Dinah Dare, inventor extraordinaire, and then there's Brew the witch. So those are, I love drawing them. They're mischievous and fun, and they're meant to look like a kid's drawing, so they're really easy to draw and simple to draw.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, so one of the fun things about space-time is there's a bunch of aliens, and so like it's hard to pick just a few, but like all the alien kids are a ton of fun to draw. I love drawing cats, and so there's a cat in space-time. And in the second book, the cat gets some cybernetic enhancements, which is really fun. And then the robots, the elementees, are also fun to draw, and they're all kind of based on like the same basic design, but then they all have like a little bit of their own unique variation on that like kind of template. So it's fun to draw them.
Very cool. I would say of the new book, Steve Omegivil, my favorite is the big cat, this gray cat, Mrs. Cuddles here. She just gets in the way of everything and she messes up everything. And then my second would be Dorcas, the robot who used to be a death robot, and now he's the family butler because he was reprogrammed. And then, of course, Steve, because he's got the cool watch. So those are my three characters. Okay, so let's see. Next question. I always love hearing about why authors chose to write middle grade. Would you all mind sharing? So okay, let's try that. We'll go. Who did I start with first last time? We'll go with Jeffrey this time.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it kind of happened by accident, or it just kind of naturally happened where I started out drawing autobiographical adult comics, and then I had the opportunity to do the first Star Wars book, the Darth Vader and Son. And while I was working on that, Scholastic had wanted to do a middle grade Star Wars book, and my name got passed along to them, and they asked me if I'd be interested, and I'd never written something specifically for middle grade, but like I jumped at the chance, and so that became Jedi Academy. And from there, my son was growing up and kind of growing into that age, so I was reading with him, and so it just seemed kind of this natural thing. Well, of course I'm going to be writing middle grade books because now that's what I'm reading with my kids, and so yeah, it's been a fun ride to do that.
Awesome, very cool. Chad.
I like going back to my own childhood years when I was just full of imagination, and my friends and I would just go on adventures in each other's backyards. I love telling stories about smart, thoughtful, emotional kids who haven't put up that shell between themselves and the world yet. They haven't discovered irony and sarcasm and detachment. So that's what I think why middle grade is kind of a sweet spot for me.
Amanda, do you want to give this one a shot?
Yeah, I think I think I've always just gravitated towards just working with like middle grade, like this sort of age range, just because kind of like what Chad said, I always go back to like my childhood years, and like a lot of the stuff that I was into was kind of formative for me as an artist. So then kind of just getting the chance to pass that along to other kids around the same age as me, and all these interests that I've taken over the years, and like being able to craft something that I may have not read as a kid, but I would have really liked to read as a kid. And just the opportunity to share that with the kids out there in the world is like something that's really special.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. Next question. Would love to know what you all are working on right now. Amanda, I'm going right back to you.
Okay. I just finished up this past week the inks for the second book of MAPMAKERS. So yeah.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm like on a little in between, but formulating and helping with script revision for book 3. So it's chugging along.
Excellent. Very good.
Yeah.
Chad, how about you?
I'm working on some unannounced books, but continuing my Cardboard Kingdom series and a whole new series I'm working on with a friend. So.
Oh, fantastic. Jeffrey, how about you?
Yeah, I'm working on some unannounced projects that I can't talk about till we finish a cover that they can show to everyone. So those are coming at some point. But I've also over the past few years started working on something that I wanted to work on for a long time, which is a like an epic fantasy adventure comic, and
awesome,
like a Lord of the Rings, Dungeons and Dragons type thing. And so I've written a first rough draft and a second rough draft, and I think I'm going to do one more rough draft before it even starts to make it out into the world. But I've been having a lot of fun just kind of working on that project on the side while I've been working on other things. And yeah, and then there's like a million other tiny things here and there, but
very cool. Okay, let's see. What are your favorite graphic novels to recommend to those either kids or adults who may not be familiar with the medium? Let's just pick 2. We'll go with you, Chad.
Well, Jeff Smith's Bone was brought up earlier as kind of like a gorgeously illustrated fantasy epic that's great for kids. I think for a little bit older, like junior high or high school, Snapdragon by Kat Lay is a really fantastic book that has like a really unique system of magic based around like roadkill. So I was really impressed and swayed by that book. I thought it was really great.
Okay, and you're more than welcome to recommend others. I just used 2 as just like a round number. I mean, if you've got any others off the top of your head.
No, I'm good.
Okay, Jeffrey, how about you?
Yeah, it's hard to think of them off the top of your head. I need to like look at my bookshelves to remember. So I'll just a couple books that come to mind. One is it's a picture book called Who Needs Donuts by Mark Allen Stamati. And that was not the book that was hugely influential to me. I didn't read that one until I was older, but there's another book he had done that's out of print that was like one of the things that really inspired me to like write and draw, and it's just fun. And so he has that children's book, but then if you're an adult, you can read his collection it's called MacDoodle Street, and collection of his comics from Village Voice. And yeah, I guess that's 2. And then as soon as we end here, I'm going to go walk past my bookshelf and say like, oh, I should have said that and that and that and that.
Okay, Amanda?
Yeah, so like for kids earlier I said like Yotsuba and like Case Closed. But what I'm like really into right now is Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. It's just this wonderful series, like very, very beautifully illustrated, about a girl who gets pulled into this world of witches and learns about how their magic works and just the ups and downs of how this strange new world works for her. And then also Children of the Sea by Daisuke Igarashi is one of my favorites, and that's more of like in line with how MAPMAKERS is, where it's like just how humans fit in the balance of the world and like the mysteries of the world around us and how there's so much to learn. And that one's also very beautifully illustrated, a lot of like gorgeous aquatic life drawings. It's like one of my favorites. Yeah.
Awesome. I have 2 I'm going to recommend. They're both by my friend Rob Harrell. The first one is called Monster on the Hill. It was actually turned into a movie over the summer called Rumble. Very, very loosely based on his book, as he will tell you. But when that book came out a few years ago, I absolutely adored that book. And I think it's fantastic. So I'm going to pitch that one, Monster on the Hill. And his second one that just came out, and he's making 2 more actually. It's called Bat Pig, and it's about a pig who was bit by a bat who becomes a superhero. And it is, I told him when it came out, I said, when you wrote this thing, I was so jealous. I wanted to take everything that I was working on and just throw it in the trash and start over because it was so funny. So I recommend those two books because they're both fantastic. Let's see. We got another question here. It says, do you remember what was the very first thing? Oh, where did it go? Do you remember what was the first thing you ever drew? Oh, geez. Amanda, we'll go with you first.
I actually do. It was there was my friend let me borrow the volume 3 of Yotsuba, and I used to copy like the drawings of like covers, and it was just like the way that she was walking in the cover like really struck me. And then I remembered I like copied it, and then I like laminated it with tape, and then I made it like my little bookmark that I would put in everything. But yeah, that was my first thing.
Awesome. Chad?
I do not remember, but luckily my parents did keep some of my childhood drawings, and I'm moving right now, and so I'm like going through all this old stuff and filing it away, and it's really nice to find like old drawings of like birds and superheroes and stuff like that from when I was a kid.
That's amazing that they kept those. I mean, that's truly amazing. Jeffrey?
Yeah, my mom actually kept everything too, and so I the earliest drawing I have is like some kind of little scribble, but the first book that I wrote is The Fierce Knight, which is actually it's become the basis for this epic fantasy adventure story that I'm working on. So
oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, I still find a lot of inspiration in those old kids' drawings.
Oh, that's amazing. I also don't remember what my very first drawing was. I'm sure it was just scribbles, but I too have notebooks that I was just gifted by my parents when they were cleaning out their garage. And from what I can tell, I had one of those Bic pens with the 4 inks, like the red, the blue, the green, the black. And it was a black scribble, and it had just like this red thing coming off the side. So it has to be Darth Vader. I mean, that has to be one of my first drawings. And the book is it's one of those Mead notebooks with lined paper, and it's nothing but that for like 200 pages. I'm like, why did you keep this? And like, we thought you'd want it. But okay, let me see. I saw another question here. Where did it go? Where are all the questions? Did I answer all the questions? I may have.
There are still some in there. I'm not sure why it's not showing up for you.
Oh. Do you want to read one or two? I mean, I'm not seeing any.
Sure, yeah, I could do that. So from Ronnie, what advice would you give to aspiring middle grade authors?
Okay.
Or was that one already answered?
I think that was my last question. It was
Okay,
something
awesome.
similar to that. But I mean, if anybody wants to give it a shot.
Well, it's a question about advice for authors specifically, not young artists.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you're right. Authors, yes. I apologize.
It's all good.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chad.
No.
Any advice to the authors?
I mean, definitely find peers who are like at the same level in their career to give you advice. And you never know what offhand remark about some program they use or pen they use that will completely rock your world. I have that all the time where someone just offers it one little tip, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to use that all the time now. So keep your eyes out for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, it's great to I love reading interviews with other writers and artists and cartoonists, and it's great to get advice from like established professionals and longtime authors, but getting finding a group of peers who are like in the same place you are in your development is really great, because you'll learn from each other together in a different way, and and then you also have like a support group who you can all commiserate together about what you're going through. And then the third group to get advice from is just friends and family who aren't authors, but like it's always good to get feedback on your work from a wide variety of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I would echo the same. Like, just the more feedback and the more like people that you can get working or like their eyes on your work, is going to be more
I'm back. Thank you guys for doing this awesome event for us. It was very interesting just to hear you guys talk about like your art and the story that went behind it. I'd like to apologize for the technical difficulties though. I know we couldn't get Cameron in here, so I'd like to apologize to Cameron that we couldn't get him in there into the audience. If you came here also to see Cameron today, and I think we lost Amanda. Oh no, Amanda's back.
Hey,
hello. Okay, well, before we all go here, I just wanted to ask you guys, where can we find you on social media?
Yeah.
I'm ChadSal01 on Instagram and Twitter. I just put it in the chat.
Yeah, let me put mine in the chat too.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Brown RQ on Instagram, and Jeffrey Brown Comics is my website, which I'm horrible about updating. So I actually have something in my calendar. Update website. It's been there for a year, so.
Yeah, my Instagram and Twitter are both Mandolin, which you can find in the chat because it's kind of hard to figure out how to spell.
That is okay.
Mine is at Lucas Turnbloom. I also put it in the chat. It's for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And I have a website still under construction, but hopefully by next week it'll be up and running. So I can't give the URL yet because it'll just be there's nothing there.
That is all right. Well, thank you guys again. Thank you, authors, for sharing your wonderful stories with us. And don't forget, everybody, make sure to go buy the book and those signed book plates at the green box below. And have a great night or day wherever you are. And we could all say goodbye today. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.